Welcome in, everybody. I am your host, Matt Novak. Alongside me, as always, Grant Hawker.
Always.
On the third mic with us, repping the best team in the NFL, Jamison DeFore.
First place. So
Feels
good.
good. Feels good, I'm sure.
So good.
Hey, man, you know how this works, though. It's first place till it ain't, right? We've
That's for
all been
Eagles.
there. That is, yeah, we're going to get into that real quick. But it is the nature of the NFL. Ride high one week, and next week your quarterback's on the IR. And
Hey. Whoa, relax.
Well, I'm not yours. I'm just saying. I'm speaking from experience. I'm a 49er fan. I'm speaking from experience. But that is the NFL. It goes one week, it's one thing. One week, it's the next. This week, no different. Just this whole season that is 2025, man, it has been a roller coaster. We have no idea, like week to week, what to expect. If anything, it has become expect the unexpected. Weird stuff's going to happen, and you don't know what angle it's coming from. We have felt that in years past at times, but I don't feel like we've ever had it as relentless as it feels this year. We've been talking about how the middle of this league is the middle right now, but the truth is, it is starting to separate. We're just really shocked at what's starting to rise to the top. I did not see a lot of it coming, but let's get into the Week 11 recap. The Eagles collapsed. Guys, I turned this game off Sunday afternoon. I did. I grabbed the popcorn and started watching Shooter Sanders, and I was tuned in to 10 sacks on Geno Smith and all that garbage. I was watching that. That, to me, was more interesting than a 21-point lead that the Eagles had in the first half. Almost got another turnover and would have driven, I'm sure, right down the field again to score. But the Eagles blow this lead. The Cowboys score 24 unanswered points throughout the second and third and fourth quarter to get it done. The Eagles get blanked in the second half, and they drop this game in the most uncharacteristic Eagles fashion. Recent history has told us that this team just knows how to finish games. And they did anything but that this weekend. Credit to the Dallas Cowboys for playing defense. That's insane. We had them getting blown out in this game. That 21-point lead wasn't even a shock to us. We're like, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. The Eagles are going to run away with it. But, man, opportunity comes again and again, and the Cowboys capitalized, and good on them. They got it done, undeniably. Not going to take anything away from them. That was a tale of two halves, guys, and they got it done this week. Super impressive.
Again, though, to me, this iterates just this. I feel like this year, to go back to your point, this year feels like wide open because even the good teams, the Eagles are a good team. They're a top 5 team in the league. They've got flaws. I think there'd be one team that we alluded to, maybe James, your team, doesn't have a whole lot of flaws in it. But even then, all the good teams, there's a question mark somewhere. Like, there is no complete team. And yeah, you can probably argue this. Oh yeah, the linebackers on this team 3 years ago were not that good, and they won the Super Bowl. But the Rams special teams is not that great. They've shown up a little bit here last couple weeks.
They're working on it.
They're working on it for sure. But like this Eagles team, yeah, probably best roster in the league. But this offense is going to crumble in the playoffs. Like if they keep doing it like this, like you can't move the ball against one of the worst secondaries in the league. That's so bad.
And you can't run the ball on them either. Jalen Hurts had a fine game, almost 70% completion, 290 yards, a touchdown, only sacked once. But still, for me, like when I look at this Philly team, yeah, one, it's a lack of creativity and innovation in their play calling, but also the running game is still just so confusing to me. Saquon Barkley, 10 attempts, 22 yards. Do the math there, pretty easy. 2.2 yards per carry. Longest run on the day was 7 yards, and he had a fumble.
Yeah, so their offense went cold. They had 5 possessions ended in punts, one on the 56-yard miss on the field goal, the other one, the Saquon Barkley fumble. So that's 7 possessions that they don't score. And then also, they had 14 penalties in this game, which is the most that the Eagles have had since Nick Sirianni's very first game as a head coach against the Eagles. So, that not scoring offense, and then again, to me, it was still uncharacteristic. Like 14 penalties that's what the Titans do. Like the Eagles,
and a lot on the defense. And a lot on the defense. And I know it uncharacteristic, but we think about the youthfulness of that defense.
Oh yeah.
How many guys they have truly brought in via the draft and some acquisitions here and there that are in their mid-20s. But yeah, like it's a really young defense that did that. And as much as we do love how Roseman puts a team together, you got to say there's one decision that the staff made collectively this week that came back to bite them massively, and that's Xavier Gibson. What in the world is that dude doing coming into a game? Like, that makes zero sense. He got cut from the Jets because he couldn't hold on to the ball. That's the Jets. That is the awful organization in the NFL, one of the worst organizations in the NFL. They cut this dude, and then weeks later, he's taking a punt in that game against that team when it's been going that bad. Like, what are we doing even giving him a shot at seeing the field? I did not respect that decision at all. Did not think that was wise by the Eagles staff. That's a miscue that you don't see them make very often. I don't know how Gibson's going to be. I don't know why he would be on the depth chart this week. It doesn't make any sense. That's a one and done for me. I can't lose that game. Can't lose to that opponent. That's just something the Eagles don't do.
Yeah, and again, for them to, against the Lions and the Packers the 2 weeks before, to only score a combined 26 points in both of those victories, looked like they were answering some of those questions. Tom Brady and Burkhardt, they were like, this offense, they're figuring it out. You scored 21 points in the first half. That's awesome. But then they totally reverted to the offense that we've just continued to see this year, and specifically averaging 13 points a game. And they're barely wins against two probably playoff teams in the Packers and Lions. So no confidence for, if you're an Eagles fan, you are not thrilled. And first of all, you're not thrilled because you lose the Cowboys and you hate the Cowboys. Yeah. But then also what this does for you come January when they get into the playoffs, because they will.
Yeah, I don't want to harp on the issue too hard. I brought it up a little bit there, the lack of being able to move the ball on the ground with Philly. That, like, we saw what we saw last year. We understand that when you get that many touches, the next year has not gone well. And we could point back to CMC. We can point back now to Saquon. I think next year it'd be really interesting to see what Gibbs is going to look like.
Taylor.
Yep, absolutely. With Taylor doing that, guys can sometimes hit a 2 or 3 year run where they can get those touches on and really be high capacity. Henry is a unicorn. Let's not even talk about that. But usually the next year it bites them to some degree. And we've seen that. Barkley in this game, 10 carries for 22 yards in a close game, 18 rushing plays, period. For the Eagles, and I do believe that's counting 4 scrambles by Hurts, who, by the way, was their leading rusher with 33 yards. Yeah, so no runs past 8 yards. That is crazy for this team, this offensive line. Got to say, Cam Jurgens, by the way, not playing great at center at all. Like that, they got to figure that out real quick. But, man, just disappointing when you look at the stat sheet, and I'm concerned. They used Barkley. He still gets 7 catches for 52 yards. So it's not like he's doing nothing, but that's 17 touches for 85 yards. And that's not what the Eagles do. That just makes no sense to me, and really disappointing to see them not even run the ball 20 times when the opportunity was there on the early downs, and they had decided, hey, we're going to attack that secondary, who for some reason decided to show up for maybe the first time really all season this week. But yeah, that's concerning a little bit.
You just don't do that when you're up by 3 scores, though. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a terrible secondary. A good team knows, okay, we're just going to run it on 3 downs every time, and we're just here to beat the clock. We're not here to beat this. We've already beat this team. We're here to beat the clock now. And so just didn't make sense.
Well, and I'll liken the scenario just for quick discussion about it like this, because I obviously pay a lot of attention to my own team. The Niners are perfectly comfortable getting 3.8 yards carry out of CMC, because every time you do that, it's a first down and 3 downs. If you're just hand the ball off 3 times, that's first down. That's what the averages are.
You can get short of that tush push on 4th, and it's the same thing.
You're within a yard. And the Niners and some other teams have come up with those different mechanisms now that are very similar to tush push. Brock Purdy has a dive that he does to one side or the other as a quarterback sneak. And when you watch the motion and how he gets moved, it's usually with a use check or a Kittle behind him helping assist in that effort. And it's almost automatic for them too. But watching that, the Niners fed the ball. I think they had 38 rushing attempts this week on Monday night against Carolina. Something like, it was high 30s. But when I look at the yards per carry, it's actually not that far off. Again, in a close game, I was watching the discrepancy, between the Niners and the Panthers in play calling on Monday night too. And I think this really has, I'm bringing up a conversation about that play calling. Like the Panthers actually average much more in yards per carry than the 49ers did. But they got down a little bit and panicked and tried to score way too fast. Dowdle, I believe between Dowdle and Hubbard, they were at like around 5.5 or 6 yards per carry combined between the two of those guys. You just like to see these teams really rely on the nuts and bolts of what makes them good. And when they get away from that in a play calling manner like the Eagles clearly did in this game, you go away from your identity, you end up with this kind of result. And to me, that's bad coaching. And I don't think Sirianni's a bad coach. I think he's insane, but I don't think he's a bad coach.
You can't call him a bad coach. He's got like the highest winning percentage.
Yeah, but I also say this, because this is something I've been wanting to say here in this regard. I still think like I don't know if I would call him the perfect coach for that team, but he is like the kind of coach.
Great fit.
Yeah, for a Philly team that needs a personality coach, not like a schematic coach. Sure. That being said, I'm not saying this for bias. I feel pretty confident that if our team's coaching staffs had that exact same setup, it would be a lot different. Yeah, sure, the wins would still look the same in the win-loss column, but I do have a hard time believing that Shanahan or Kubiak and McDonald's defensive mind or Sean McVay and Chris Shula's defense does not at least look better and more dominant in those games, because Kevin Patullo's offense is really hard to watch. And whether you like it or not, Sirianni can be the perfect coaching fit for a Philadelphia team, but that's his guy. And he's bringing in guys that are clearly not doing what this team needs to do. And I understand it's a little ironic because we'll come on here and we'll talk about Jalen Hurts throwing 20 times and having 112 yards and having mistake-free football but not doing anything. And now he has 39 attempts in a game. But again, that's also exactly what we're talking about. Like, they don't have an identity. They flip-flop around these different ways. And guess what? You're winning games when you're doing this low and slow, boring thing, but your margin of victory is so slim. But then you're also playing a game like this where you get ahead and then you remove the thing that helps your margin of victory, which is just run the ball, eat the clock, get out of there, win the game. So it's like they course correct one way or the other, like too much. They don't up their offense enough to like just have a dominant game and win the game. Or they go up and then they just get stuck in that and they throw a game away. They go scoreless the rest of the way, 24-0, basically, to the Cowboys. So I do think that is part of it. Obviously, he's not going to get fired anytime soon, Sirianni, especially winning the Super Bowl and having a year like this despite some of the downs. But it does give me pause because when you're the guy who's in charge and you have the car keys, I have a hard time feeling like any other team. I know they're winning, but at this point in the season, surely there would have been something changed there in the play calling. Usually, like a coach might say, Dan Campbell, I'm taking over play calling duties. This is not working out very well. Now, I don't think that's been super successful for Detroit, but they haven't even tried anything seemingly with Philadelphia. And I do think that if they don't, they're going to have a really hard time because, again, this is not a way you lose this game, but that's also not a way to beat a Rams. I don't even think that's a way to beat the 49ers with as injured as they are. I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe that's recency bias here, but if those two teams played right now, like I've seen more better things consistently out of the 49ers, at least offensively this year with what they have available than I have with this star-studded roster who just came off of winning a Super Bowl. So that is still
it does seem like they're still trying to find that identity offensively. What are we? Because we weren't throwing the ball to A.J. Brown and we were winning games. We threw the ball. I think he had 8 catches this week for 110 yards, finds end zone, and we lose. And to be fair, Jake Elliott did miss a 56-yard kick in the fourth quarter that would have had this game tied at 24. Yeah. So there was a thing here or there that needed to go their way. Again, the penalties are a huge issue. I think if we're going to look at all of it, that to me is the biggest thing. You cannot win games consistently in the NFL and be in double-digit penalties. The 49ers overcame 3 interceptions, for instance, this week because they had 2 penalties in that game. That'll help you. You're gonna if you make mistakes. I know we haven't gotten to that game at all yet, but yeah, like you can make them in one way, but you can't make them another way. And it just seems like from a play calling standpoint, they made a lot. And then again, making a lot of issues or making a lot of issues for themselves in those mistakes. 14 penalties, man, is just so much. I want to get to some teams that surprises this week a little bit, and then we'll get to a few players that had some excellent weeks. Chiefs beat the Colts in overtime. Man, I'm genuinely surprised with the Colts coming off the bye week on this one. I did not see that coming. Butker gets it done with a field goal. Credit to the Chiefs' defense, and that's really where you got to sit on this one. Great defensive game for them, stopping what has been the 1, 2, or 3 most prolific offense, depending on which couple of weeks we're talking about here so far in the season in the Colts. Did a great job against Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's been murdering everybody. Doesn't matter how good your defense is. This week, it mattered. They did a great job containing. And then that scheme, are we really that surprised? When you have a genius coordinating your defense, I don't know why I was that surprised to see that score, or to watch that game and get that score, but kind of was a little bit. Like, Spags hasn't been having his best year, but dude, he came to play this week. That was awesome. 23-20. They are not dead yet when it comes to the playoffs. I got a lot of hits this last week on the internet. One of them was for saying that the Chiefs are dead. I was referring to them winning the AFC West. Please, for the love of God, watch more than 5 seconds of a clip before you.
It's even clear in the clip.
Somebody's good name.
It's even clear in the clip. It says the Chiefs are dead. Their reign of the AFC West is over.
Yeah, guys, watch more than 5 seconds. I know that you're all screen addicted to TikTok and like scrolling, but for the love of God, just watch more than 5 seconds. I swear we explain it. But no, they aren't dead yet when it comes to playoff race. They're right there. They're real close. And that certainly is going to go a long way when you consider the AFC and the tightness that's going to exist here in the coming weeks. Teams with very similar looking records vying for those, especially the 5, 6, and 7 seeds of the AFC playoffs.
We have three teams. We have 3 teams with a 6-5 record.
Yeah.
And we've got so we've got 4 teams with a 6-5 record, one of them being the Ravens, who are in the playoffs.
Yep.
Because they now control the AFC North. And then there's 1, 2, 3. Then there's 3 7-4 teams. So there's 7 teams that are within a game of each other. Now, some of them have won against each other, so that matters. But it's gonna be real close, and it is not clear yet who's gonna be taking these spots.
And we've got a lot of teams playing each other.
Yes,
that will help determine that in the coming weeks. Man.
The Jaguars and Texans haven't played each other at all yet. They still have 2 games to go on them, and the Jaguars have a 1-game lead on them in terms of win-loss.
And I know our rundown here, but let's skip down because speaking of, the Texans defense is freaking terrifying. I think we all thought it was an anomaly when we watched them do that to the Niners a couple weeks ago. We were like, man, the Niners were just due to have a down week. And that's how I treated it. I think that's how we all collectively treated it, was like the Niners needed to get beat up. And man, I thought that's what it was. Just, hey, Ryan's used to be the defensive coordinator for the Niners, and like, that offense has taken so many hits. Man, they just came out and showed up for that game. But holy crap. I legitimately, like, dude, Allen is coming off, for the Bills, Allen is coming off a 6-touchdown performance. An epic. This guy just went and did it all on Sunday. He goes into Thursday night, and the team scores 12 points. He has 0 touchdowns and throws 2 picks. Dude was running for his life, gets sacked 8 times. They are the number 1 ranked defense in prime time, and the Texans, man, when they are on TV, look great.
They're averaging 16.4 points a game before this game, by the way. That was last week. So that average is going down. Clearly the best scoring defense in the league. And honestly, for defense,
might be the Rams now, actually. I'll look it up.
It's 16.4. You guys were at 16.3 heading into the week. I know that.
But nonetheless, all the other categories don't matter. Like, in hindsight, it's score on the defense side, it's scoring defense. Whoever can hold the team to the least amount of points, it's the bend, don't break. And if you're anywhere in the teens, you're looking real good. And to be as low as they are, it is just a shame this offense sucks and that CJ Stroud is injured for real.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They're a playoff team right now. And honestly, like, they could do some damage right now with Davis Mills. That's crazy. With the giraffe himself leading them down the field. Oh my God.
And honestly, the Texans coming out of their division just because Trevor Lawrence continues to not play well. And what they just did to Josh Allen. Can you imagine how much worse Trevor Lawrence is going to look playing this team? And he's still got 2 matchups right now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't trust them as much as probably in the playoffs, like even though the Bills just lost to them, like a Bills or a team with a star-studded quarterback. But
Ravens.
yeah, but like Texans get into the playoffs, I'm a big fan of that because this defense is legit. And when it comes down to it, like they're gonna have to beat the Jaguars. That's how they get in there. If they win against the Jaguars, they're in the playoffs.
Yep.
And I absolutely like that Texans defense over a Trevor Lawrence-led offense in the Jaguars right now.
Absolutely. And that Jaguars defense is so opportunistic. Like those guys will give up points in certain games and then come and do what they did to the Chargers last week in week 10. But I've said it many times. They are 100% turnover dependent as a team. That is what they are. Trevor Lawrence is mid, and that defense, when they're intercepting the ball, when they're collecting fumbles, that's what gets it done. Because they will give up yards, and they will surrender points at times. It's just the change of possession that does it for them, and the explosiveness when they have changed possession, too, because they also get return yards like mad. Yeah. I mean, they just coach that up, and that's what you do with a young defense, though, so credit to the coaching staff and how they've done that. Seems real similar to the way the Bucs were operating last year. Credit to Liam Cohen for seeing something that worked and bringing it right along up north with him.
Yeah.
I want to get to a couple of players that had a great week. Gotta highlight JSN. I know that the Seahawks game against the Titans does not matter. 30-24 win. Which, by the way, Grant, were you sweating just a tiny bit?
It was garbage. It was garbage time.
A little bit.
It was a little bit of garbage time. I wasn't sweating also because it was a 10 a.m. game. I was at work, so I only got to watch really the end of it anyway. Yeah. But even though it got close, I'm like, this is still the worst offense in the league. Again, against the top 5 defense. Yes, the score looked a little scarier, but I'm like, I know that these teams are going to show up and be who they are in the last 5 minutes of the game, and that's what happened. So,
and I will say,
dude.
I was just going to say real quick, despite that, because I do agree, like, the score was a little bit closer than what the game actually was. Yeah. I was following that on Red Zone throughout the morning. But I will say, obviously, that Seahawks defense is still disgusting. Cam Ward looked pretty decent, all things considered.
I think it was
one of that was a surprise.
Yeah,
I was like, he's going to get cooked in this game, and he fared all right.
And he's the reason. Yeah, one of it was a special teams returned a punt thing. That was why I got there.
Well, but the best returner in the league. So
yes, but two, like Cam Ward extended so many plays, like out of the pocket. Like he did. They still got him 4 times, but if it was any other quarterback who was not mobile, but because he is. He extended plays, and they had so many 3rd and 4th down conversions because they essentially were playing with 4 downs the whole time. But yeah, dude, JSN continues his insane tear, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's almost like this thing where like every time Sam Darnold goes deep, I'm like, it's a JSN and he's gonna catch it every time. Like it's weird. I haven't had
confidence, right?
I'm just like, it's JSN and he's gonna catch it because the Sam Darnold JSN connection is real. It's insane, and I really think that this Megatron record is possible to break it.
It's definitely possible. But if you look at right now where we're at in the season, this is usually when guys that have been pulling in catches, because he's not in first place in terms of pace to this point. There's been, I think, 3 other guys that have actually had more yards than him going into this game. I think one of them is Ocho Cinco, and I'm going to totally bomb on forgetting the other 2.
And probably Antonio Brown's one of them. Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, name your guy. But really, right here is where they hit that peak in terms of the yards per catch and yards per game. And then you deal with some defenses that have seen a lot of film on what that offense is doing, and you see them key in and do that. JSN seems to be somewhat immune to that. If you're watching week to week, plus Darnold seems to only have eyes for one individual, and so maybe that helps him. But, dude, it's impressive to watch. And one thing you got to continue to say about him is this dude is not a one-trick pony. He just eats it all over the field. Genuinely, he takes what he wants, and his feet are incredible when he gets to the sideline. His hands are amazing. His ability to track down a ball over the shoulder, like, insane. And dude, he also plays pretty fearless. Like for a dude that's not amazingly big in stature, he'll run at some guys. But I think he really handles his body too as he's getting tackled, and that's something that's going to benefit. He does not treat himself recklessly. I'm not trying to say that at all. We've seen guys that look for contact. He's not doing that clearly, but he's also not scared. And I love watching him play. Honestly, I like watching him. I love watching Amon-Ra. Those are 2 of my favorite receivers to watch in the league. just because of the way they can beat you. And he's fantastic, dude. So 108 yards is what he needs to average for the rest of these games that he's got in front of him to break the record. That seems really doable based on what we're watching, of course, and he's on pace for it and everything. But like I said, it'll be interesting to see if some teams do catch up in terms of the scheming and seeing what the Seahawks are doing and maybe bring that per game average at least down a little bit. Maybe some of them don't have the personnel.
And
so
I think he's got two cupcake secondaries coming up again the next 2 weeks, and the Vikings and the Falcons. So really, it'll be the Colts and then the Rams back to back, but then the Panthers and then the Rams. So we'll see where that goes. But for the next 2 weeks at least, I don't think that trajectory is going away. But we'll see.
He can help himself out on the average against those two.
Oh yeah, if he can do
167 against each of those is pretty doable.
Yeah,
I know I'm saying big numbers, and I'm not trying to take anything for granted here, but based on what we've seen, that's fairly doable. We're going to give somebody some credit real quick, okay, that I don't think is that good, and I want to be really clear about that. I don't think he's good. I think he's fine. I think it's one game. I think we all had popcorn in our hands, and we watched the worst team in the NFL play against the Browns.
The third or fourth worst team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I think they're the worst team in the league. I'm just saying, I've watched the Titans, and at least the Titans play competitive ball games. The Raiders are getting worse.
No, I was saying the Browns being one, like also.
No, my bad.
The Browns are like the third or fourth worst team.
I got you. Misunderstood. But legitimately, I think the Raiders are the worst team in the league now.
I think so too. Yep.
And dude, Shedeur Sanders, he had, I think, 3 really good throws. One of them, Jerry Jeudy, needs to apologize for immensely.
Yeah.
What the crutter? This is the NFL. What are you doing with a stutter step and 3 guys in front of you? Just go down, you idiot. And I'm not saying that like heavy. Like Jerry Jeudy seems like a consummate professional, but that was a boo. But no, Shedeur threw 3 good balls. The pass to, I'm going to forget the running back's name, that he chucked down the field, the far one, that was great. Great connection.
Ford. I think it was the Ford.
Yep.
Or was it Samson?
That one.
Samson?
Yep.
Samson.
It was Samson. But he is the first quarterback for the Browns to win their start since Eric Zaire in 1995, their first start with the Browns. That is pretty impressive. The win also snapped a 13-game road losing streak for the Browns. And this guy just went out and did it. What was he? I don't want to misquote his percentage here. He was barely over 50% on his.
It was 55% completion percentage, 209 yards, a touchdown, a pick. Yeah. So pretty pedestrian.
Only sacked once, I think, is actually the stat that pops out to me because that's a guy who, when he came in to finish that game, was just getting destroyed. I would have expected Max Crosby to be maybe a little bit more active on a guy who's making his first start on a team that is not very good. Good for him, avoiding being sacked into oblivion, and he had 11 completions, but at 10.5 yards per attempt, or average completions. Good job for you. Good job for you.
He's going to move on from the Raiders defense, which I believe is giving up, the third most points in the league right now, to facing the 49ers this week, who are a lot farther down on that chart and playing good right now, at least on that side of the ball. Had an impressive game on Monday night in that regard. I don't expect it to go as well for him this week. We're going to see some stuff. I think Lenore's a better corner, clearly, than anything that the Raiders have, and I think you could pretty much find that at every level, although Max Crosby, elite. Don't get me wrong, in his defensive end, that's the better unit there that maybe the Raiders do have than the Niners. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch their 10 a.m. game this week, and I'll be really curious to see what those numbers look like when we get on the back end of that. J.J. McCarthy, on the other hand, sucks at football, and number 9 is trash. Like, we're done here. Like,
remember how I
we're good.
Sent you guys that stat in the group chat where his third down completion percentage was like 841 out of 842 qualifying quarterbacks since this century. EPA per play, which if you guys aren't familiar with that, just for anyone who's maybe listening, EPA per play is expected points added. So basically when you do something calculating the down and distance, like how many points per play are you adding towards success? And he also ranks second to last in that same category. And this time, the only person behind him is Jamarcus Russell. So that's bad for anyone who's listening and wondering. Maybe you don't remember Jamarcus Russell, and that's probably good that you've memory hold that, or God forbid you weren't born yet for that, because
Oh.
that's the thing that can happen now.
One of the best NFL stories of all time.
Yeah.
One of the best rookie stories ever.
Dude, them giving him like an empty playbook or whatever, or film thing to see if he would study it.
It was empty film, and they sent him home to go study it and give a report back on what he saw. And they asked him if he saw anything significant. I was like, no, it's pretty just regular.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he could throw a football like 70 yards from his knees or whatever.
Cool. He can eat
Cool.
2 pizzas in one sitting. He proved that in his rookie year, too. To add on to that, J.J. McCarthy this season, his completion percentage 53%, last in the NFL. Touchdown to interception ratio is 6 and 8, or touchdown to interception 6 and 8, last in the NFL. Passer rating 61.7, last in the NFL. The experiment's over. Yeah, you had a hard run, got that awful injury last year, basically redshirted out. But man, we're 2/3 of the way through a season, and he ain't it. Like, he's just not it.
Can I be honest? This is exactly what I thought in the draft. I was like, why all of a sudden is this J.J. McCarthy guy coming out of Michigan where he's not asked to do anything all of a sudden? This new, like, every year people like fool themselves into this. And it's, I know that there's a lot of people out there much smarter than me getting paid to do this. And the people included in that are the people that scouted J.J. McCarthy and saw these things. But I feel like at some point it's just obvious. Oh, the guy didn't do anything in college, so now we're going to draft him in the first round and let him just be the quarterback of the future, the system quarterback of the future. And it's like, what are we doing here?
The reason it happened is the same reason it happened to Zach Wilson. You saw one throw on his pro day, and it shot his draft stock through the roof. It's the same reason Anthony Richardson showed up and was a top 5 pick, is because he had the insane combine. It's because it's such an important position. People will look past every reasonable and logical thing, and they don't have the same lens that they view the quarterback in the draft as they do a wide receiver. If you were to look at a wide receiver and see like an equivalent of what is happening, look at competition, what he's being asked to do for a wide receiver, obviously they're not going to get picked high, but because it's a quarterback, people will look past those things. Like the same reason Trey Lance got picked when he did. It's all of those things because it's the potential. They draft for potential more than any other position. You don't draft for potential at wide receiver. You draft for what with your eyes at every other position.
And unfortunately for JJ, he is in like literally the best place for what was asked of him, which is to be like a developmental quarterback under the quarterback whisperer with an S tier wide receiver and a solid defense, theoretically.
So you're telling me this could be worse?
Yeah,
87 yards.
Imagine he was drafted to the Jets.
Dude, he'd be dead if he was drafted to the Jets. 87 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions was his Sunday. It does not get a lot worse in the NFL than that. And the one guy, I think there's been one dude that's had a worse day, and that was Fields. And he's no longer starting. It's just a matter of weeks. That's what we're looking at here, is a matter of weeks. When the Vikings are mathematically eliminated.
I think he popped up on the injury report again.
Ooh, do we get one of those?
For symptoms of a concussion.
Carson,
was it throwing 2 interceptions and not being able to throw passes to his own team? Were those the symptoms?
Yeah, they're like, this guy is making the most idiotic throws I've ever seen. He must not be okay.
Yeah, he's in concussion protocol again, and this is a week where the Vikings face a quarterback they had last year, and Sam Darnold too. So that's probably going to.
Could have had Aaron Rodgers if they wanted him. They could have had Sam Darnold again. They rostered Daniel Jones, by the way, lest we forget. And
all of them would not put up 87 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 picks.
Carson Wentz is Carson Wentz, and at least he was throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson. You know what I mean?
Doing what you should. Yeah.
No, it's bad. It's bad, and it's not going to get better. You guys just brought it up, though. We had another quarterback missing this week. We were hopeful. I was genuinely hopeful that we were going to see Aaron Rodgers play this weekend. I really wanted to see that against the Bears because I'd like to see. I think those teams are basically the same thing. There's just some pieces missing on both of them, and I knew that was going to be really even. The game's still really even, 34-31. The Steelers with that loss. Mason Rudolph, by the way, coming in, did not play bad. That's what a backup quarterback's supposed to do, put you in contention. But you cannot give up those points that the Steelers defense did. And let's bring it up one more time. Highest paid defense in the league and did not get it done against the Bears. DJ Moore had been awful for most of this season. Two touchdown catches this week. Just exposing, again, the age of that secondary. Like, it's so real. You cannot deny it.
It's a retirement center back there, dude.
It's so bad. And, like, they're going to blow it up again after this year's over. That's pretty clear. But
I personally think they're blowing up more than just that secondary and that defense. I think they're going to nuke this team.
To do that, one thing would have to happen.
Which is?
There's a coach that has to be gone for them to nuke the team.
I think this is the time. I think this is what they do. Because they're not going to get better continuing this, like doing this thing again. And to me, this is the worst version of this type of Steelers team that's old, overpaid. They tried to they gaslit themselves into thinking they could go win a Super Bowl by signing all these old players, making these trades for Johnny Smith, and then signing Aaron Rodgers like 2 weeks before the training camp started and all this stuff. But and trading for DK Metcalf and then paying him all this money. Like, they're going to keep him.
But Ramsey, you're a Steeler now.
Well, I think if you're the owner, which is the Rooneys, right? Aren't they the owners? Yep. Yeah. Like, I just go, listen, man, you tried to salvage this season. I think Mike Tomlin knew this season was not going to be good. Like, he knew that. So that's why they try to do all these things to maybe just for the meme to try and keep that 9-8 season, that record alive for them. But like, dude, like after having a terrible offense off season, committing all this money to all these teams and giving up all these picks and money and all this stuff, and for this to be the result is embarrassing. And it's got to be time. It has to be.
And we're saying this on the week that the Ravens claim the top seat in the AFC North, a team that was 2-5?
Yep.
Got that right? Yep.
Yeah.
2-5. And is now on top of the division at 6-5 because they own the tiebreaker in the immediate anyway. So everything just converged for them this week. And I don't want to completely hit the panic button, though. Don't get me wrong. We buried them before the season started. We said what we said. This never works. You don't buy teams in the NFL and go win championships. That's not how it happens. You go spend that much money on free agents and make the kind of moves that they did, and you end up being that Eagles team that just got decimated after they constructed an insane roster all those years ago. You think about just the history of purchasing players. Locker room camaraderie matters more in this sport than any other because there's so many human beings. And Tomlin is incredible at managing a locker room, don't get me wrong, but when you have ayahuasca guy hanging out with Jalen Ramsey, who's out of his flipping mind, and you're dealing with DK Metcalf in the same room, and dude, you've got Cam Hayward, who's been there forever, who's paying me, bro. Like, you're having all of those discussions. Not one of them. It's not one big personality. It's all those personalities, and to try and manage that when all these guys are getting paid the way they are, it's a recipe for disaster.
Can I also say this? Something that I think was very apparent as we were watching a game that we already talked about in Dallas. It's also worth noting that George Pickens was on that team, was swapped out for a third rounder, and is now second in receiving yards this season. Like, I think there's some of that in there too. As good of a coach as he is, I think there is a little bit of losing your fastball to an extent. And ultimately, like, George Pickens probably going berserk there because of the quarterbacks that they had. Yeah. But also that's something that as a head coach, like, you have to help address. And by bringing in 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, the irony is now of all of the years, you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and it's probably the year that you lose your winning streak. You go 8 wins or below and miss out on the playoffs, and sayonara. And that team is also, unfortunately for Steelers fans, going to be left in a pretty bad spot.
Those contracts are not fun. Like, I know you got just like this year, next year, where it's big, but remember, DK, 30 million.
Yeah.
30 million.
And it's
Jay Watts' enormous contract. Like, those are problems.
And it's just a misunderstanding of how to construct a roster, because the reality is that the best players, like, to supplement, like, free agents should be used to supplement, not to build a team, because the best players don't become free agents because teams pay them the money that they should. Like the Nick Bosa's when he was up for his contract, like he doesn't go to free agency because the Niners, yeah, we're going to pay this guy. Well, the Seahawks are going to pay JSN this next season because he's the best receiver in the league. The best players do not see free agency because teams understand that they need to keep them. And so to think that you're going to go get the best, you're like, that's why you see like these like B cornerbacks get these top dollar money in free agency, not because they deserve it, but because they're the best available. That's why we see this.
And we have a guy that is on the show regularly that has this philosophy. Bad teams pay free agents that kind of money. Bad teams do it. Winning teams don't.
Yeah.
And he pointed back to the success that was the dynasty of the Patriots and how they refused to do it. And he was dead right about that. You watch the Giants winning those 2 Super Bowls. They did the same thing. Like, they paid their guys, kept them in-house, but they did not go out and get top-tier free agents year after year. Winning teams, look at the Chiefs right now. They refuse to do it. They said bye to Tyreek because they weren't willing to pay a certain number.
And won 2.
That's just what it is.
And then won 2 when he left.
Or if you are going to buy players, you also have to accept the rebuild that potentially comes after that, if that's what you're going to do, which
or learn how to
Rams fan,
supplement with draft.
Yeah, which is like what the Rams did. Obviously, like that is the prime example of buying the players, and we still had the guys in house that made that happen. But we went out of our way. We built that team by bringing in Jalen Ramsey, Odell Beckham. We're going to bring you into for some extra help. Von Miller, you're going to join us this season, and like all of those things.
But it's
happen.
a supplement. It's
Sure,
not.
but those are supplemental rentals.
Yes, but then we have a terrible year after that, but we had to swallow that pill.
Well, we do that for a Lombardi.
Yeah.
But then you draft, you do things the right way. You admit, here's where we're at now, instead of trying to, because there was a fork in the road for that Rams team where we could have continued to try to do that, continue to sell our first round picks. And they just swallowed that pill and said, okay, here we are. And the Steelers, it worries me if you're a Steelers fan that they're not going to do that unless Tomlin is out the door.
Yep, and that's absolutely true. And I would say, like, comparatively, if you were to look at the 2 teams, and we talked about the Eagles earlier and just concern about coaching, but like the best constructed teams right now, top to bottom, would be the Rams and the Eagles, in my opinion, in the league, just top to bottom. And those are 2 teams that did supplement with a guy or 2. Eagles clearly doing that with Brown when they got him. This last year was Saquon. I still don't understand why $12 million is a ton of money for a guy that produces as much as the likes of him. I don't understand why that was a big deal. I'll never understand that probably. And then you see the Rams do it, obviously, with Devonta. That's a huge component to what this offense is, and we're willing to let go of $15 million receiver in Cup to get that done.
Again, even with that, like with Devonta, they're not paying him to come in and be wide receiver 1. Like paying this money, they're paying him to be wide receiver 2 and be a complement to Puka because they already had the one. They're not like
both of those
teams do. Yep.
Yeah, and both of those teams also that you just named have 2 of the cheapest defenses in the entire league.
I think they're both in the bottom 3, right?
Yeah.
Yep. But and by the way, we just gotta. He's not allowed to talk about it. We're gonna do something different here. Okay, Jamison's not allowed to talk about his team for a second. 31-7 against the Bucks. That was pretty stinking impressive. Just going to throw that out there. Also, we need to show some respect to Devonta Adams, who now holds the record for the most 1-yard touchdown receptions for a touchdown. And did I say that right? 1-yard touchdown receptions. There we go. Ever. He just passed Jimmy Graham this last week.
Jimmy Graham.
His last 8 touchdowns. Devonta Adams' last 8 touchdowns. 1 yard, 1 yard, 2 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 1 yard, 1 yard, 2 yards. That dude is a goal line monster. Absolute monster. The likes of which we have really only seen regularly at the tight end position. I think, of course, of a Gates, of a Gronk, of a Jimmy Graham for sure, obviously. You have to give respect to that guy, who, by the way, is one of the most interesting human beings on the face of the planet.
Yep.
You want to go read a great story, just look up Jimmy Graham, his bio. It's insane. But, dude, good for him. And the Rams, I said this 2 weeks ago when the Rams played the Seahawks. I said, look, the team that wins this game is the best team in the league right now, period. And the Rams did nothing but prove that is clearly them right now. And as all NFC West fans here, we're all nodding our heads in agreement and saying the same thing. They look good. They look real good. And I expected the Bucs to put up a much better fight than that. I know they're dealing with some injuries, and obviously that defense has been got more than once this year. But, man, Baker couldn't be Baker this week, and that he has rarely been stopped the way he was this weekend. So all due respect to him, or all due respect, sorry, to the Rams.
Stafford
and
MVP still.
Matthew Stafford is the MVP right now. Not a question.
Which is,
he is.
As a Rams fan, like I have a hard time with this because it's like the same thing watching Cooper Kupp that season where I'm just constantly rooting for it, but then also building up that anticipation where if something were to happen and he's out or doesn't get it, now it's like the history is like here and now I'm watching it slip through my fingers. But like to be at this point in the season after 11 games from where we were in the preseason, where it was basically like, yeah, Matthew Stafford's basically like half of a human right now, and he's like sitting in this red light chamber, basically just like soaking in the rays, hoping that something works, to now be here. And I'm sure you guys have seen this stat, tying Tom Brady for the most touchdown passes without an interception at 27. But Brady's spanned 2 seasons, and Matthew Stafford has done it this season so far. And I think that a big part of that is having a guy like Devontae Adams at the goal line, vastly reducing the amount of interceptions that could be had by throwing a touchdown when you have a guy just on a quick 1-yard release and you just throw it. It's a jump ball if it's incomplete, but you're not throwing across coverages or anything like that. But to have a 30-2 touchdown interception ratio, if that holds, that is the greatest in a single season by a decent margin. That's
he's got Lamar
15.
that he's chasing, right?
Lamar was
14.
what, 10?
What's that?
Lamar was 10, 40-4.
Yeah.
And right now it's a 15-1 ratio.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, he's 1 game away, though, from adding 2 interceptions on there. We understand what the NFL is.
Yeah. Not against the Panthers this week with no Jason Horn,
and it's not on him. I'm just saying, like, a deflection off
the ball
ends.
bounces a certain way. Now, I will say this. I think the thing, just to put my last little flag here in the Matthew Stafford conversation while we're in it, I think the thing that makes me feel the best about it, and honestly, one of the reasons why I'm probably the most confident about this team is, yes, the defense is exceeding my expectations, which has been fantastic to watch. And yes, technically, they are the number 1 scoring defense. I probably wouldn't call them a better defense than the Texans just by watching those 2 teams play, but they're right there as far as those stats are concerned. But watching Matthew Stafford play offense, like on the Super Bowl run, 41 touchdowns, 17 picks. And Matt, you and I and the guys went down. We watched a game, Monday Night Football. That was not a great Stafford game. There were some of those weird ones where it like pops out of Higbee's lap.
That was Higbee's night.
Now that's a pick. So those things can happen, and those things were happening. But I think what makes me feel so good about the Stafford thing is watching his game, it's more than just the stats. The stats are certainly there, but you watch the tape and he's moving defenders with his eyes in ways that other people aren't. He's not turning the ball over, obviously. And for me, the thing that makes me, I think, even the most excited is that he's only been sacked 15 times this whole season so far. They've played 11 games. He's been sacked 15 times. Yeah. That is towards the bottom. It's Penix is the only one who's been sacked less. Tyrod Taylor, who's played 4 games. Bo Nix and Sam Darnold are the only guys who have actually started the same amount of games who have been sacked fewer times than Matthew Stafford. Both of those guys have been sacked 12 times. He's staying clean. He's slinging it. He's not turning the ball over. It's the thing that probably gives me the most confidence with this team when I look at the rest of the playoff field and I say, not only do I think this guy's the MVP, but I think legitimately, especially if we have a bye week and the NFC runs through an indoor stadium where, sure, we don't have the greatest home field advantage compared to some of the other teams in the conference. But it's getting better, full. And I think people, I think people are catching up to this whole thing here, and especially if this season amounts to an MVP campaign for a quarterback in Los Angeles, I think there's going to be a lot more blue butts in seats than red or green or whatever you want to call the Seahawks colors, navy blue,
different blue.
Yeah, not the neon green, please.
Action green.
Yeah, but man, I actually feel good. I'm kind of like Mike with the Rams, where Mike is like the doom and gloom Niners guy. I tend to be the same thing with the Rams, just because it scares me. Like you said, any given Sunday, something can happen, and like you got an old quarterback who's got a bad back, but here we are. It's literally like a Christmas miracle. So that's my Rams Matthew Stafford rant. He's the MVP, which also, by the way, assuming this pace holds, fortunate for him that no other people are like really in that conversation to that extent. JSN, obviously, CMC, I would actually say is probably the offensive player of the year right now. But like the other quarterbacks that are typically in that conversation are not winning enough
Yeah,
games,
that's true.
are hurt. And
Yeah.
so if he
That's why he's gotta
holds,
be the
this is
favorite.
also the season that punches Matthew Stafford's ticket into the Hall of Fame.
Look, you're not. The only thing that Matthew Stafford doesn't have for a Hall of Fame resume, in my opinion, the only big knock up against him has been that win percentage. Because that is a quarterback stat, and that it's largely regarded as that. And now he's got that. Like, he's in the plus. All you got to do is be in the plus on the win column. There's definitely been writers that would forgive those with votes that'll forgive certain people. Like, you have like Arch Manning, who played on a horrible team, for instance. Like, when you have certain
I
conversations,
think he's fortunate in this case that Detroit is this is a well-known bad situation. Like, same thing if it were the Browns, like everybody knows. But if it were like, hey, you're on the Falcons and the Falcons are bad and then a little good and then bad.
I don't know.
There are certain teams where I feel like maybe that narrative works, but Detroit, I think everybody collectively understands.
He's had many good years with good touchdown to interception ratio, a really good one. This is going to be the year, the plant the flag on the stat year. Like, and if he can go out, you're right. If he goes out on top, I think he's definitely in. But that Super Bowl win is that's a big one. It really is. And then you just look at his overall yards, touchdown, interception ratio. Like, he's right there where he needs to be in that conversation. Maybe not that first ballot or even that first or second, but like, he was in my opinion, at some point. Like, I've never, I don't know, in the last 2 years, I had not thought about him and thought, oh yeah, that guy's not going. He is one of the premier quarterbacks of his era, for sure. And he's got
if Eli Manning is on ballots, please spare me that conversation.
He's in rare air though. Having two Super Bowls is a
big deal.
Yeah.
But also
equates 5 good years of stats. I'm just saying. You get the second one.
I know that, but if we're talking about Hall of Fame and you're telling me that Eli Manning was a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford, and you're telling me you watch that with your eyes and you believe that, then that's where obviously the Hall of Fame thing is. There's differences. He should be in there for Hall of Fame moments because of what he did against those teams, which is my beef with the Hall of Fame personally.
That's exactly what's going through my head.
If players aren't going to make it, there should be a Hall of Fame moment for that player, or there should be Hall of Fame teams that get in for that thing. Going to basketball, like the Detroit Pistons in 2004, maybe nobody in there was like statistically individually awesome, but that's like a Hall of Fame moment of a team.
Oh my gosh!
Defensive player of the year 4 times, obviously insane. But yeah, that's where I stand. And I agree. I think I would have had Stafford in there regardless. But people are going to say no MVPs, none of the All Pros, and it's okay. I get what you're saying, but watch him play.
Yeah, but on the All Pro conversation, dude,
well, it's blocked out by Manning and Brady and Breeze and like all these guys for years.
Come on, like he literally, the dude was playing across from probably 6 to 7 first ballot Hall of Famers.
Well,
on any given Sunday during his career.
It's the greatest era of quarterbacks.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
Like,
the offense has all changed.
Yeah, it was the most impressive. The quarterback position became what it is now because of those 5 or 6 guys ahead of him, and he's in that group.
I mean, he had that year in 2011 where he threw for 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns and did not get any All-Pro noms because of the Aaron Rodgers year, and Drew Brees, like all these guys. It's just like it's tough sledding in that era.
Aaron and Drew for 4 or 5 years in there.
In the early 2010s.
You take on Peyton's insane year with the Broncos,
2013.
Yep. Yeah, and then Brady has 09 in there as well, like right before that. So yeah, that was Randy Moss and the Welker. Like, dude, oh my gosh, those numbers were just unbelievable that those guys were pumping out during that time. I want to get into just a little bit or just a quick rundown, and then we're going to get into Pick'em, because I promised that we were going to just give a quick viewpoint on the playoffs. I'm going to start with the AFC just to hit it. Sorry to do a hard out there on the discussion, but New England currently sitting there as the only double-digit win team in the league right now at 10-2 and looking all of it, although Will Campbell, that sucks. Looks like he's going to miss IR, though. That is what I heard today.
That's like best case scenario, because I did like when a dude's carted off, when you're carted off a field, that's usually season ender. Like, dude, that's usually how that goes.
He wasn't as young as he is. That thing's torn.
Yeah, I tabbed over to that game and I just saw this mountain of a human sitting on the cart with the towel over his head, but I couldn't see his number and I was like, please don't be who I think that is. And it was, and I was like, that's the guy who said, I'm going to fight and die for my quarterback. And I was like,
oh yeah,
Right.
who doesn't love that guy?
Best case scenario. So we're thankful it's not anything.
yeah. But the left side of that line is decimated, unfortunately, for Drake May, who also already takes too many sacks for what it's worth.
What is he, like third in the league right now? Most sack quarterback? You look up the number, but check it for me as I run this down. But yeah, that hurts. But
37, he's third behind Geno and Cam Ward. Not
what I thought it was. That is not good company. Denver sitting there at 9-2. Not a big surprise there. Defense continues to win games for them. And they're rested now. So that's going to be interesting to see what comes up here in the next 2 weeks for them. Indy's at 8-3 after taking the L. They're sitting there at the 3rd seed, but any of those teams can move up and down real quick. Baltimore moves into the 4th seed because they have the division lead at 6-5. The Chargers sitting there at 5 right now. Jacksonville at 6 right now, and Buffalo at 7 right now. And that is due to tiebreakers. Chargers 3-0 in division. That's a big reason why they are at the 5 seed. They have taken care of business where it really matters.
So I'm going to ask something that may sound dumb because I've been watching football for a long time. The Jaguars smoked the Chargers, though. They should have a tiebreaker over the Chargers, and shouldn't they be the? Does it go? That doesn't make sense to me.
No, so Chargers.
I have the tie-breaking procedures right here
over Buffalo and Jacksonville.
But why do they have the tiebreaker over? The Jaguars smoked the Chargers
based on best win percentage in conference games.
That goes first over even
first.
over, even over playing each other. That's stupid.
Mm-hmm. Well, versus head-to-head, best won-loss tie percentage in games between the clubs. Best won tied lost percentage in games played within the division is 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's really stupid because the Jaguars should be number 5 because they just demolished the Chargers last week.
I don't disagree with that.
Same record.
I disagree with that. Don't love that the conference record is ahead. And truthfully, the Jaguars have the same amount of losses in conference that the Chargers do. The Chargers just have played more conference games. So they're 6-2. The Jaguars are 4-2.
Yeah.
And then again, Buffalo sitting down there at 4-3. And that's because, at a 7-4 in the 7th seed because they're 4-3 in conference. Houston looking right there on the outside, looking in. Pittsburgh now at 6-5. They go from being the 4 seed to the 9 seed. That's a big drop in 1 week, but that's how tight the AFC is. And then the only other team that has a shot at the playoffs is Kansas City at 6-5. Hilariously, Miami at 4-7 is the 11 right behind them. But those are the 10 teams clearly competing for a playoff spot on the AFC side. The Rams, in contrast, over in the NFC, sitting at 1-9-2. They are the only 2-loss team in the conference. Philadelphia at 8-3 is the 2 seed. Chicago moves up to the 3 seed at 8-3. Tampa still holding their division lead at 6-5, and that's because the Niners helped out with their win over the Panthers this week, ensuring that the Panthers are on the outside looking at the 9 spot. Seattle is sitting at 5 at 8-3. Clearly has a hold on the wild card, so they're only going to move up from that spot if there is a win-loss that goes in favor of them at this point. And they would jump anywhere from 3-1, I would imagine at this point. I don't see them falling down to the 4 seed and Tampa recovering from the injuries on its defensive side anytime soon. Then Green Bay, because of their tie, is sitting there at 7-3-1 in the 6th spot. And the Niners, again, like last week, sitting firmly in 7th at 8-4. But there could be so much movement in the coming weeks because we have so many of these teams playing each other. Then you have the Lions sitting right on the outside at 7-4, but they could swap spots here real quick because they are playing Green Bay this week. So you're going to see this start to get real muddy as the NFC North gets more games against each other. And then, as I mentioned, Carolina sitting there at 6-6, but down but not out with their big win this week is the Dallas Cowboys at 5-5-1. That's a hard path to go. They're essentially 2.5 games behind the 49ers. That's a hard path that they'd have to go through to get there, but it's not impossible. They just beat what had been the number 1 seed in their conference this week. So that's how that shapes up on the NFC side. We'll continue to check in with that picture, talk about what we see happening here in future weeks, but we got to get to pick them real quick. And I don't want to do the first game. I don't like this at all. The Chiefs just won a game that we were not necessarily expecting them to win, though it didn't shock us. The Cowboys, however, did win a game that shocked us, and they are hosting the Chiefs. Quick update before we do our guesses. Grant is currently at 35-25. I am at 38-22. Jamison is moving up 39-21. Mike, again, sitting at 41-19. If you're not just copy and pasting what Mike says every week, you're missing out on some easy money, apparently. But getting into this first game, Chiefs at Cowboys, like I said, don't like it at all, but I'm just going to take the Chiefs. I don't have a huge reason for that. I was just more surprised that the Cowboys won than the Chiefs, so we'll just take it at what it is. I'm going to go to Grant on the next.
Man,
This one sucks.
Cowboys coming off their Super Bowl,
Oh, preach.
but they play on their day.
It is Thanksgiving. It's when the Cowboys eat.
But I can't feel I still can't remove myself the Chiefs being 6-5. I still can't remove the betting against the Chiefs and until further notice thing.
Yeah, I hear that.
Even at 6-5, I think I gotta go Chiefs. I don't love it. I don't. This is what era are we in where I'm not loving picking the Chiefs? What is this season? This season,
It's dumb.
yeah,
You're doing it. You're doing it. You're still picking them. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. To me, this is the game of the week. You just actually perfect segue into this because you just mentioned that the Cowboys are 10th and the Chiefs are 10th. And winning or losing this game almost effectively closes the door on any sort of playoff hope that you have. According to NFL.com, the Chiefs still have a 54% chance in the playoffs based on their record. The Cowboys currently have an 8% playoff probability based on where they're at. And I think a lot of that is, again, just division, tiebreakers, things like that. Chiefs are definitely still experiencing some of that on their own.
So that drops
That being said,
to 15% probably.
If they lose this game, the Chiefs have to run the table, and at that point, probably also hope that something else happens to another team.
Yeah, they're going to have to
give them a tiebreaker. So, because of that, I'm going to pick the Chiefs. Again, I'm gonna roll that until I see otherwise, and maybe this is the otherwise. If they lose to the Cowboys in a game that is going to essentially again determine what happens next in their season, I'm going to take the Chiefs. And then if they lose that game, that I think that gives everybody free reign to be like, okay, now we can start picking against the Chiefs a little bit more. But I'm going to take them. They also did a great job this week cutting down on the Colts. They had 91 plays, ran to the Colts 50 plays. So I expect probably a similar game plan to limit that Cowboys offense this week. And it's win time. It's the Chiefs. They know they got to go. We're taking them.
Speaking of Thanksgiving games, we're going to get into the Packers at the Lions. And you talk about teams that really want to win right now. But also, I don't know if you guys caught this in the scheduling. This game is being played at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. They have moved off the early time that has traditionally been on Thanksgiving, those 9 a.m. games that they like to do. So that was interesting to me that they moved it back to 10 a.m. So anyway, but with that start time, we're doing a reverse order here. Packers at the Lions. Jamison, yeah, man. That's what I feel about either team, right? Maybe.
Yeah, this is even a tougher one than the last one for me, just because I haven't been super impressed with some of the units on either of these teams at times recently. And the Lions just went to overtime with the Giants, who are just absolutely decimated. And
oh my gosh, did we talk about it?
Time out. Just real quick here, because I know we're on a time crunch, but Jameis Winston needs to be on a team and rostered and starting every week for somebody, please. Even if it's an all-time quarterback situation.
Yes, can he be the all-time quarterback for the NFL?
Yeah.
Can he just be a free agent that gets one-day contracts? And he just goes and practices with a team
that receiving touchdown is the funniest and best probably play of the season so far.
That whole game was the Jameis Winston experience. Through a laser, 40-yard bomb, catches a 30-yard bomb, stiff arms a dude into the end zone, and then they're in the game, and then also throws a terrible pick at a costly time in the game to give the momentum back to the Lions. It's the ultimate Jameis Winston experience, but the NFL is better with Jameis Winston starting games. Please, somehow, NFL, break your rules. I don't know all the rules for rostering players and like trade deadline doesn't exist with Jameis Winston.
He just needs to like wear a uniform with the shield, and like the helmet is just the shield, and it's just the NFL Rob Lowe like football hat.
Yes,
where
and
he's
just like
wearing,
00. Yeah,
yeah.
like just that's how it needs to be. He's awesome. He's amazing. Come on, please do it.
I apologize. I got to run, so I'm going to drop my picks really quick. I am taking the Lions because I love them. I am taking the Texans for the upset.
Let's go.
I am taking the Eagles at home because nobody wins there but them. And I am taking the Ravens against Joe Burrow. And I cannot wait to hear what you guys think about that one. But super excited. He's playing football this week, not just because I have a certain wide receiver on my fantasy team.
Yeah, me too. Especially with T. Higgins being out with concussion. Feed me all of the Jamar Chase receptions.
Yeah, that's what I'm taking. Man, you guys have fun throwing in your picks at the end. And for everybody watching, I am not sad at all for what I said about the Bears this last week. Not even a tiny bit. I was referring to their schedule. For the love of God, internet, calm the crap down. Please don't clip this. All right, bye.
Alrighty, for those of you that are watching, which I think is all of you, I won't clip it because what's happening is his computer is dying, and so his camera's kind of shutting down. So that's what's happening. So there's nothing for me to clip anyway. It's useless. All right. Packers at the Lions. Jameson, you were talking about this one.
Yeah, yes.
Talking about not liking both units.
And I feel like that was topical because Jameis Winston crossed up a certain corner on the Lions in that game in order to make that play happen.
Yeah.
And so as much as I want to root for the Lions, and I definitely think the Lions can and should win this game, and they're going to be desperate to, right now, I'm just not loving what I'm seeing from them. Defense is good up front, bad in the back. It's like a bad mullet. So I'm going to take the Packers in this game. I don't love it because I don't really love what they've been doing offensively either. But Micah Parsons chasing after Jared Goff, who has been having a statistically fine season, but like when you watch the games, a rough couple of weeks. And I know this will be indoors for him in Detroit, and they'll be up and going, and Jahmyr Gibbs is going to absolutely cook again. But I don't know. I'm feeling the Packers here. I just think they might walk in and be a little bit more organized. So we're going to go Packers. Don't feel great about it.
I think
I would also rather play the Packers in the playoffs. So that's also kind of why I would rather them win and see the Lions go.
But to me, that's why in this game, I'm not picking who I'd rather see in the playoffs. I'm picking who's going to win this game. And for me, I don't think Jordan Love's a guy. At what point do we like he's fine. He's average, but he has 15. Let me look at his stats. I have his stats here. 15 touchdowns. He's completing 67% of his passes, which is good, but 15 touchdowns.
102 passer rating.
But
they're pretty fine. 15-3, like you said, touchdown interception ratio.
That's solid. I mean, that's solid, but
only been sacked 17 times. It's a very risk averse football, which is not going to, I think, pay dividends against a team who is all risk in Detroit. But that's where I'm like, maybe we'll just ride off of that boring, because I feel like they've been making games boring, not to the extent of the Eagles. But don't feel great about it. I'm rooting for the Lions, to be clear. But
I think I'm gonna pick the Lions in this one. Like, the offense has just been struggling to execute on key downs. There's a lot of third and longs for this team. Like, they get penalized quite a bit. They're dropping passes. There's not a real clear identity for this team, much like we talked about the Eagles. I'm like, what are they doing right now? And that's also what's frustrating, is because you know what they should be doing well when you've got someone like Josh Jacobs in the backfield, just like with the Eagles, have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. You know what they should be doing, but they're not doing the thing they should be doing. And so that's what's concerning to me. And I think the Lions, the reason that they don't have 8 wins and are tied with one of the better records in the league right now is because they're not getting out of their own head. They're not getting out of their own way with being they're being too Dan Campbell for their own good. Like, going for it 5 times on 4th down against the Eagles a couple weeks ago. That's why they lost, because they gave the Eagles some easy field position in that game. But they should be 8-3, and we should be talking about them in the way that we are some of these other teams that are really good. And I still think they're really good. And pound for pound, I like their whole room. Like, a lot of their position players way better than the Packers. And so I think for me, long-winded, but I think I'm going to take the Lions here because they are, as much as, yes, the Lions have not been consistent, the Packers have been even less consistent than the Lions, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm going there. I'll take this next one. What do we got? Texans at the Colts. Gosh. I think I got to go Texans. Like, I just can't look past what they did to Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're going to turn Indiana Jones into Danny Dimes. We've seen that a couple times this year. It was against the Steelers. Like, the Steelers being old and broken and expensive. They forced 5 turnovers in that game or something like that crazy against the Colts. And this Texans defense is just so good. And I think even the best offenses are not going to do great against them. And the Colts are one of the best offenses. So I'm going to go Texans there. That I just can't look past what they did, how bad they made Josh Allen look. Even removing the picks and the sacks, like he missed guys, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm taking the Texans here.
Yeah, I'm probably also leaning Texans. I really wish this was a CJ Stroud game. Sounds like he's probably still going to be out this week in concussion protocol. But the Colts, still definitely a good team, but I think we're starting to see how that offense can be limited a little bit. And I think ultimately it comes down to as good as he has been this year, it's at the end of the day, it's still Daniel Jones. He's still going to make those mistakes. It's
still same thing with Sam Darnold. It's like until they
that's
prove
what I was
it.
going to say.
Yeah.
You have a game where you throw 4 picks, and then you're great, and then this other thing happens. And also, like, as good as a year as Jonathan Taylor has been having, he's also had a couple hit or miss games. Like, obviously, he had that monster game at the beginning of this month where he had 244 yards.
Oh, the international game,
the
London game, whatever.
In that game versus Atlanta. But Kansas City keeps him really quiet this week. 16 attempts for 58 yards, which, by the way, he had a 27-yard run in that. So take 27 out of 58 and then you had 15 attempts where he only got the remaining amount of yards. Only 2 first downs and a loss in between, basically sandwiched in between that massive game. That he had the 58-yard game, then he had a 45-yard game the week before that against Pittsburgh. And like the Pittsburgh defense, as we talked about, like you were mentioning, like they stonewalled them a little bit, and that's not like a fantastic defense. And this defense is absolutely electric. So they got dudes at every level, and I think they're going to be headhunting a quarterback he's going to be liable to throw a couple of them up there. And they've also Derek Stingley Jr. not going to play around when that ball is in the air. I'll tell you that much. No. I am going to take the Texans here. I hope the Colts can still keep it interesting because I would love to see him play in a playoff game. Just because, like, in the same way where I want to see Sam Darnold get battle tested in the postseason so we can actually continue to make assessments on where he's at. I don't want this season to go by for Daniel Jones where he just completely falls off at the end of the season, and then we go into a postseason where he doesn't get the opportunity to try to change.
They fall into the playoffs and then
and then maybe you disappear after your one and done season. I do think that they lose this week, but I hope that they can at least stay the course because this would be one of those games where you get absolutely beat up by a divisional rival and also massive for the playoffs for Houston.
Yeah. And also, the Colts don't need to win this. They've built themselves a cushion here.
Yeah.
Like they have, and there's a team that really needs it, and a team that obviously they want it. The Colts want to win. I'm not out here saying a team doesn't want to win an NFL game, but there is absolutely, much like we're talking about, like the Chiefs, like the Cowboys, like you got to run the table here. I think it'll
get you at 7-5 if you're the Texans, and if one of those teams above you in the wild card loses this week, God forbid it were the Bills losing this week somehow.
That's
like
huge.
There's a tiebreaker you have right there with somebody, and I imagine they're going to beat up on the Jaguars at some point again. So this is a really big one to get, even if they're not going to be able to catch the Colts.
Okay, we've got next one we got is Bears at Eagles. I think I went first in this Texas one.
I'll start this one.
Yeah, Bears at Eagles.
I wish I could get cute with this one, but I'm not going to mince any words here. The Eagles are probably going to stomp the ever-living daylights out of the Bears in this one. And not just because, for all Matt has said about the Bears this year, and as much heat as he's taken for it, And even though I've been the guy who was like, actually, I think the Bears are going to be at worst third place in that division, and the Vikings are going to be the fall off team, not the Bears.
Mhm.
They're still not necessarily like an 8-3 team when you really get down to brass tacks. Like they're a 3 seed right now. If you are, let's see, who would that be? That would be the Packers versus the Bears in round 1 if the playoffs started today. Like, we really think that the Bears are going to beat them, or if you guys happen to draw them somehow in a 4-5 matchup, or you slid to the 6 somehow, it's give me the Bears.
Yeah, because if the obviously right now the best case scenario would be to play the Buccaneers because they're so injured.
Yeah.
But if they're at full strength, if all these teams are at full strength, everybody's got their starters out there. Yeah, the most favorable matchup out of all of these would be for your team that's in the playoffs to play the Bears.
Exactly.
100%.
And
100%.
And obviously, we know this is the beginning of their rough stretch coming up. I still think they're a team that kind of has that DNA where they can squeak out a game at the end, but play 3/4 of really confusing football. And ironically, we just spent the entirety of the beginning of the show talking about the 3 confusing quarters of football that the Eagles played, but in the reverse way, where they lost themselves a game versus a division rival. But that's also why I think the Eagles are going to be absolutely pissed off. And I think they're just going to take it to the Bears in a way that is probably shouldn't be televised, but is going to be. So taking the Eagles here, and this is the beginning of the Bears slide.
Yeah, same with you. I don't want to belabor the point. I think the Bears defense is going to kill Caleb Williams. I think they're just going to obviously.
And I've been impressed with his escapability this year.
Okay,
kill him in Minecraft.
Yes. Also, as we're growing this thing and more people are watching us, they're going to stomp him.
Unalive him.
Yes. Yes.
Unalive
We're on TikTok. Yes, we have to
unalive him.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, that as good as and escapable as he has been, which I think has been a good thing for him. It's just like too many huge dudes.
They're
got
all
guys in the secondary.
They're all athletic, so athletic. Yeah.
And that Bears defense has been fine, but even that Eagles offense, I think, is going to be okay.
Yeah. Okay, so then our last one, Bengals at Ravens. This is our third Thanksgiving game, so all 3 of them we're picking them. Main reason why is because Joe Burrow is going to be back this week. He almost went last week. The Bengals, I think, decided to short week. Why not just hold it off on there? I understand why they're doing it because Joe Burrow's a dog and he wants to play. He wants to play for his team. But also, you're 3-8. Like, you're not making the playoffs. I'm almost like, bro, I'd rather see you healthy next year at this point. But respect the guy for going out there to fight for his team. I appreciate that in fantasy as I picked him up because my other quarterback, I drafted Kyler Murray at fantasy and then had Jordan Love as my backup. So I've had terrible quarterbacks play in fantasy, but I picked up Joe Burrow because someone dropped him after he got injured. So I'm hopeful for that to help as the fantasy playoffs start here soonish. But Bengals at Ravens, it's no slack to Joe Burrow. He hasn't played in like 2 months, and the Ravens, the defense still sucks. Like Joe Burrow coming back does not fix the Eagles does not fix the Bengals problems. Like it does not. The problems was not the offense, even when Joe Burrow wasn't there. Joe Flacco was slinging it. So this last time I checked, Joe Burrow does not play defense and does not play defensive line, linebacker, and safety all at the same time. Yeah, I'm going Ravens here.
Yeah, I hope this is an interesting game. And I do think that of the games that we have here, like we've picked some teams that might be considered underdogs, but I think the spread in this game, I think the Ravens are favored by 7 is what I last saw. I think this is probably the best one to where, of course, like Joe Burrow's back and he's healthy. And what do you know? He threw for 380 yards and 4 touchdowns. And
I would love it.
Got half of that. So that's definitely on the table. And that's what would be needed to win this game because of how poor their defense is. But I will say Lamar hasn't been that great as of late, which I think is more to do with he's also a little banged up in a way that's maybe not being so like clearly covered, which is ironic given that they just got themselves in trouble of not really properly disclosing an injury to Lamar Jackson earlier this year. But I think he's just grinding through some stuff right now. He hasn't been as explosive on the ground, which has led to them being able to attack him in the air a little bit more. So he just hasn't been as successful as a passer these past couple of weeks. But that Bengals defense, again, is so sorry. They still have their guys on offense in Baltimore for whatever it's worth, and it's a home game. The one thing that gives me pause, I actually want to look up real quick, is Kyle Hamilton, because I think he was questionable And if he doesn't play, that does make that Ravens defense pretty
He returned to
significantly worse.
practice. Him and Lamar Jackson both returned to practice today, as we're
Okay.
recording this on
So,
Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm still going to lean Ravens there for what it is. And again, it's a home game for them. I think it's just you're asking a lot of the Bengals to come in and win this game, and you're asking a lot of Joe Burrow to be 3-8 and come in and do that behind a line that already has had him killed multiple times or unalived, excuse me.
Yes.
Multiple times. But I will say this. I think the Ravens are going to win. But if they lose to this Bengals team, people have already been calling for Harbaugh's head in Minecraft. And if they drop this game, and that is one of the things that kind of prevents that, because again, like the Ravens, their path to the playoffs is winning that division. And if they lose and they go 6-6 and they lose that ground to the Bengals, a team that they hate as well, that is going to look very badly for Harbaugh there in Baltimore.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I've seen a lot more of that because my head coach, Mike McDonald, comes from the Ravens. I see some, because of algorithms and stuff like that, I see Ravens fans, even as of this past week, that are mad that they didn't keep him and let Harbaugh go.
I've got some Ravens fans in my life that were saying that from the time that it happened, because they were already fed up before then, but they're like, okay, at least we got this guy being our defense and probably going to be our next head, basically being like, again, the defensive Sean McVay.
Yeah.
And then they let him go and keep this guy.
That 23
in mediocrity.
That 23 Ravens team is a top 5 historically on a lot of categories. Like it's like an incredible defense. And so, yeah, I do hear that. They still haven't even played the Steelers yet, though. That's where even if they lose, if they they lose this game, but then they go sweep the Steelers, they're winning the division. Yeah, but even with that, they still also could fire Harbaugh at the end of the season.
And
also, these things can be true.
Yeah, and the first time that the Ravens and the Steelers play, that might be like low-key, lukewarm coaching seed game. Obviously, Tomlin's not going to get fired. It would be more like we're mutually parting ways.
You're going to hear the reports. It's one of those things where you hear the reports before the season's over that they plan to move on from him.
Because that could be the difference. Again, if those go one way and the Ravens fall out of the playoffs when they've had Lamar for the second half of the season, or the Steelers lose their Tomlin winning streak.
Yeah.
One of those things is going to happen. But yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying Ravens are going to win this game, but it could go poorly for them. And I'm sure the Bengals are very excited to play spoilers in this game, and that's probably a motivating factor for Joe Burrow on Thanksgiving to primetime night game be spoiler to a team that is really trying to get back into the playoffs here. Nothing to fight for besides that. And you know what? I kind of love that. That's like next level hating. I have no reason to be out here. I'm injured, but if I can do something to potentially keep you out of the playoffs, absolutely sign me up.
Yeah. All right. We'll get Mike's picks in. We got Matt's in. That will do it for our show this week. Hopefully you all have an incredible week. It is Thanksgiving week. I'm going to say it, and I'll say it. I think Thanksgiving food is overrated. I like the holiday.
Chicken. Hey, this goes back to season 1 Sportsify. Chicken should be the bird for Thanksgiving. Turkey is so overrated.
It's the thing, because you know it. 80% of the turkey you've eaten in your life has been dry. Now that 20% is solid and it's good. But let's be real here. If 80% of something is not good, the thing is not good. That's true of Star Wars. There's 2 good Star Wars movies, okay? Like the rest sucks. So Star Wars is not that good.
Yeah, and one of them is Revenge of the Sith, to be clear.
I don't even hate that. So there we go. But hopefully you have a great time spending it with your family and friends. But most importantly, that you get to watch football all day. That's why Thanksgiving is elite. Not because of the food. It's the football. So have a great Thanksgiving, and we will catch you guys next week.